but I do want to walk through the benefits for you. You know, January 1 is the renewal for the employee benefit package for Western Towboat. And I always encourage Dan to offer us some time to get in front of you, because from year to year, we never know who's really going to use the benefits, and you may not know. Maybe you're going to have a baby this next year, maybe you haven't used it in years, maybe you got an issue come up, maybe it didn't work so well for you last year. So we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer any of your questions and to orient you towards the benefits, and certainly to make sure you understand, you know, that they're there for you, for your families, to help you when you need them. And also, listening to the story that just you guys were describing regarding the cable and things, and putting in another sensor, and it makes me think a little bit about healthcare and the way I look at it, and that is there's things that we can do, each of us, each year, to make sure that we're on the right track on healthcare, and that's just a preventive exam. You know, for each one of you in this room and every one of your family members, you can go to your provider every year, have a preventive exam, and at no cost to you. It's a routine physical exam, and it's kind of that checkup to make sure that if you have anything going, you find it early, and it can help you an awful lot, that early detection of anything. And we're talking about a routine physical exam, age-appropriate cancer screenings for those of you that are 50 or over, you know, the dreaded colonoscopy or whatever, but we want to encourage you. We all have horrible stories about these things. So just as I was listening to that, the kind of, here's the preventive maintenance, here's some procedures we can do to prevent a bigger problem. To me, that's a routine preventive exam that's available to every one of you without cost throughout the year. So what I'd like to do is just to go through kind of the structure of the benefits, how they work, and then each line of coverage that we have, and then certainly answer any questions that you have. One of the things that comes up is Obamacare every year, right? We've all heard of Obamacare. This year, there really has been very little impact to the plan from that. The main thing is that with this year, the mandate is that your co-pays that you use for your office visits and for prescriptions will now apply towards your out-of-pocket maximum. And I'm talking in Greek. Stop me and I'll explain it. I want to make sure we understand things like co-pays, deductible, out-of-pocket maximums. And what those are cost-sharing devices that we use to help share the cost with you. So an office visit copay, a prescription copay, whenever you fill a prescription or you go to the doctor, you've got to pay a little bit as you go. And once we also have a $500 deductible. So if you have an inpatient facility, if you go to the emergency room, things like that, you've got $500 of exposure that you're responsible for. After that, the plan pays 80 or 90%, depending on what it is that you're having covered, where the insurance is paying the bulk of the cost and you're paying a copay or a co-insurance along with that. And once your total spend, including deductible, copays, and co-insurance, reaches $3,000, the insurance company picks up 100% of the cost. And by insurance company, I mean Western Towboat. This is a self-insured plan. We buy an insurance policy for large claimants. So if we have someone that has $250,000 of claims, we don't pick up all of the cost of that. We pick up the first large chunk of it, about $50,000 to $60,000 of it. And then we cede the rest to insurance. So when I talk about an insurance company, we're talking about your employer, Western Towboat, really, okay? So any questions on that? Deductible, co-insurance, copays? Obamacare, for you, if you do not enroll on this particular plan, I don't know why you wouldn't. The cost is picked up for you as an employee by the employer. But there's an individual mandate that if someone doesn't have health care coverage out there this year, they're going to get fined by the government, okay? So we have a lot of employers that are really scrambling on this thing. The way that this plan is structured, there's really no impact because most of you should be enrolled on the plan if you've met any sort of waiting period. Is that a fact? Everyone enrolled on the plan, the medical plan? Okay, excellent. So again, the way the plan's structured, prescriptions, office visits, you've got a copay. Once you hit the hospital or have an emergency room, you've got a $500 deductible you'll have to pay all of. And the worst case scenario is $3,000. As far as what it costs, again, employee cost does not have any, there's no cost for an employee to be covered on the plan. For those with dependents, it's $55 for the first dependent, $110 for those with 2 dependents. This is payroll deductions, right? And for those that have a full family coverage, it's about $265, I believe, is the monthly payroll deduction you would pay. And those are very generous contributions. I know we've got many employers that just do not pay anything towards dependent cost. They literally say, we'll pick up the cost for the employee, but if you want to put your dependents on the plan, you can pick up the cost of that. Western Towboat has historically picked up the majority of the cost and will most likely continue to do so as long as healthcare remains affordable, which is, again, part of why we want to get in front of you and talk to you about some of this stuff. So any questions on any of that layout of what the plan structure is like at this point at all?
Is January the only time that you can change your medical?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, good question. There is, what we do is if you've got dependents on the plan, the contributions you make for those are on a pre-tax basis. You don't have to pay tax on the money you spend for your family. And also, so by doing that, the IRS says if you're not going to pay taxes on it, we've got to limit your choices. So we have an open enrollment every year where you have the opportunity to add or drop dependents and things like that. It comes once a year. That's your only shot to do it. No, there is exceptions. We call them life events. If you have a birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, a job loss, say your spouse was working somewhere.
My wife's retiring in September.
Yeah.
She has a plan.
Right.
It's cheaper for me to go with her plan on her and my plan on me. And come September, I want to bring her into this.
Yeah, that's a life event. She's got a loss of coverage from her employer, so that would open up an opportunity for you guys to assess what you want to do, and she could come onto the plan. So it's loss of coverage, birth, death, divorce, marriage, things like that. Anything outside of those, what we call, the IRS calls life events, you've got one opportunity every year. Open enrollment, that's typically around November, December, and we're a couple months after that at this point. Okay?
So how much leeway do I have if she retires mid-September? Is it like immediate for a week? Or?
You've got a month or so. It's typically you want to just alert them, hey, this is when, when she loses coverage, you don't want a gap in coverage. So let's just say October 15th, she's going to retire and she loses coverage on November 1st. You want to make sure that on November 1st, you've got her enrolled on the plan here. That's really the thing. So it's not like week to week. It's really your target dates when you want to have it. You'll need to provide you may need to provide some documentation of the loss, right? Because Western Towboat would want to make sure that they can say, this person had a life event. This is what it is. There's a job loss or loss of coverage, I should say, because it doesn't have to be a job loss. Their employer could just say, we're not offering benefits anymore, and it's a loss of coverage, and that would trigger her opportunity to join this plan. Same thing if some of you have a baby throughout the year. You got about, it's 30 days or so to add a child. So, by the time you're a couple weeks into it, when you start getting some sleep, you need to make the call and add someone onto the plan. Okay? Question over here.
For new employees who haven't been here long enough to qualify, once you've been here long enough, can you enroll, or do you have to wait till January?
No. New hires are different, right? It's first of the month following as soon as you're eligible. So if you have enough hours, then you should be coming on the plan at your first opportunity, and that's your opportunity to enroll dependents. So good point. If you're a new employee, they offer you coverage or also offering it to any family members you have. If your spouse works someplace else and has coverage and you decide not to put her on the plan, then you have a situation where at the next open enrollment would be your first opportunity. If you get married halfway through the year, you can bring your new spouse onto the plan at that point. So it's really life events and one time a year for you. And the reason is that we're taking pre-tax. If you can imagine, if someone's got a family on this plan, it's $250 or so a month. That's $2,500 a year. We're not paying that; they're paying out of their paycheck for these benefits. Okay, and if we're doing it on a pre-tax basis, it's saving about $500 for that family. Because if you're in a 20% tax bracket, you'd save $500 on that $2,500 to spend. So because we do that, we give you that benefit of pre-tax, the IRS gives us these rules to operate within. Okay. All right. We've got a dental program here. It's pretty good one. We've got $2,000 maximum. That doesn't seem like much. We got a lot of employers that would like to see those maximums higher. It just gets very expensive. You know, a crown used to be, when I started, it'd be $500 in this business 30 years ago. A crown was $400 or $500, if that. Now they're, you know, $1,100, $1,200. There's bridges, there's implants. I mean, we've got people that are spending more money on dental now than they do on medical if they're relatively healthy. The risk is still on medical, your worst case scenario. But for what you actually spend, it's incredible. So, but the dental plan with the $2,000 max is really a strong benefit. And we also offer child ortho to $1,500 a lifetime maximum, which again is another strong benefit. Yeah.
I was told there was a waiting period on some of the procedures for the dental plan.
For a new enrollee,
Yeah,
I'd have to look into that. I don't know.
like 2 years.
For a 2-year wait for crown, I'll have to look into that. I don't. That's new to me if there is. I don't know that that's in place. I'd have to check. Huh, okay. And that's the other thing. When things happen to you throughout the year, does anyone know where a packet or an e-packet you might have got from Becky is from November? Does anyone know where theirs is? You do? Does anyone not know? Come on, somebody does. Those things disappear. They're in the truck. Yeah, exactly. There's great information in that packet, and to his question, where we've got a 2-year wait for a crown, seems I'd have to check the contract closely on that. But we have at Kibble and Prentice what we call our Benefit Resource Center, which is a claim advocacy group. If you run into a situation with Cigna or on the dental program or anything where you know it doesn't make sense, this should be covered. In that packet, there's an 800 number for you to call our Benefit Resource Center. We're located in downtown Seattle. You can call them, and they're your claim advocate. They'll kind of break down. They'll call the carrier for you and say, "Hey, this doesn't seem right. Why wasn't this processed the correct way?" And they are your expert to help you deal with those insurance companies. Okay, so we're the largest broker for Cigna in the Northwest. We have a lot of pull with them. We can't make everything happen, but we can make sure that we can help a provider. If you go in for a preventive visit and the provider doesn't bill it as a preventive visit, they just bill it as an office visit, it's subject to copay. If it's a preventive visit, there's no copay. It's a free visit. But those doctors, those providers have to bill it the right way. And so we can get in there and help you with that type of stuff. So our Benefit Resource Center is the place to go should you need any help or you have any questions on anything that Cigna or the other carriers have done for you.
On the dental, is it still 60%? They pay 60, we pay 40.
On the major, right? Because let me pull it. I do have this stuff on my phone real quick, but I think it's for preventive. It's at 100. For dental, I think it's 100% for preventive. I can't remember, it's 90 or 80.
I think it's
80% for preventive, so it's 100% for preventive, 80% for restorative, which is your fillings, things like that, and it's 50% for major, which is crowns and things like that, and a $2,000 maximum.
And the 2,000 is what the insurance pays, not the bill.
Yeah, it's what they'll pay until $2,000. Okay, so if you have say you have a bridge done and it costs $4,000, right? They're going to pay 50% of that cost, or $2,000, right? So the bill will be more. You'll be responsible for another chunk of that bill, right? Because the provider's billing a total of $4,000. But the insurance will stop paying when they paid out $2,000 each year.
Correct.
So be working with your provider and they're doing stuff like that. You can spread it over 2 years, things like that. But most providers are kind of, especially because dental expenses just get higher and higher each year, it seems. And they don't have the networks. They're very independent to try to help control their costs. There's not so much structure around dental cost control. But again, dental is $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 is a lot to kind of cap out at about there. When you get to medical, of course, we've got stuff that can go for $500,000 and things like that. We've got a child right now, one of our clients, it's a little over $1 million. It's battling cancer, and that's what we really need insurance for, right? We can $6,000, $8,000 is hurtful. It affects our budget and it knocks us down, but it doesn't cost us our house necessarily. So, at any rate, we do have vision coverage as well, right? And embedded in the medical plan. There's a life insurance benefit of one-time salary to $50,000 maximum. So, should anything horrible happen to you, does everyone? When's the last time someone's looked at the beneficiary on their life insurance? Okay? Perfect. We had a situation last year where a guy filled one out 10 years ago, put his girlfriend on there. Unfortunately, he passed away, and the girlfriend, who now lives in Ohio, received his full life benefit of $50,000 plus a couple $100,000 in a 401k. And she hasn't been around him for 8 years. All right? If we're feeling good about that, your ex-girlfriend from 5 years ago getting this kind of, should anything horrible happen, we're good with that. But take a second, check in with Becky. I want to update my beneficiary, right? Maybe it was your mom 5 years ago when you started, and now you're married and stuff like that. So you want to be in control and take care of that. Yeah, good question.
Do you update that at any time?
Yeah, you can update anytime. You can go in and you just need to update it. We ran into a situation just this week with another one where someone never named a beneficiary on their life, but they bought a separate life policy, a voluntary policy through the same carrier, and they named a beneficiary on that, and the carrier was able to use the beneficiary on the supplemental life policy and kind of project that over to the one that the person didn't name a beneficiary. But these are big things. It doesn't matter to you, you're gone. But the people that are behind kind of cleaning things up, where that money, if the money goes to a hated ex-girlfriend from 10 years ago, it's a problem in the family. Trust me. I mean, lawyers were involved in everything, and the guy said, this is who gets my money. So you got to make sure this is that you've looked at that and it's what you want. Because Becky or no one else can do that for you. You've got to look at that beneficiary. So life insurance, again, it's not a high volume thing, but it can be very complicated at certain times. Any other questions? Anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, you were saying about the, for your child's orthodontics, it was like 50%, 15. What about for us? Is orthodontics covered at all?
Adult ortho is not covered in the contract.
I have an autistic daughter, and autism's never been covered. And I noticed something in the news recently about Washington State forcing the insurance companies. Do you know when that's going into effect?
It's working its way into 2015 contracts, but it's not necessarily working into our contract here at Western Towboat, and here's why. Western Towboat is a self-insured plan. We're not governed by the regulations of the state of Washington. So state mandates don't apply. So if the state of Washington indicates that we have to cover a certain issue, it's employer choice because we're subject to federal standards because we're self-insured. So that's something that as the state mandates certain things, typically we do a review every year to say, hey, here's the new updated mandates. Is this something we want to consider? But there was no update for this year at this point. So, but that's a really good question, and that's something that we can certainly look at. And that's kind of a growing science around. The whole thing has been challenging for families for years, and it's kind of getting some of the attention now. And so if we were a fully insured contract regulated by the state of Washington, that would be rolling out in 2015. Okay, we're seeing that in our contracts there.
I got just a quick question.
Yeah.
On what is the percentage that our dental pays on just the routine checkups and cleanings?
It should be 100% of the usual and customary amount. That's a really good question. what happens is that there's no real dental schedule, there's no real form. You know, I could go to my dentist and he might charge me $250 for a cleaning. Yours might charge $170. Yours might charge $300. And so what the carriers do, Cigna included, they say, hey, we'll pay, you know, what we see out there, $190 will pay 90, but will pay 9 out of 10 dentists in full. So we're going to pay 100% to $190. If your dentist happens to charge $240, he could turn around and tell you, I want the other $50. That's called balance billing. Okay, so that's what you know. If he happens to be in the Cigna Dental Network, then he can't do that. The dentist is obligated. He built a contract with Cigna to say, I will accept your payment as payment in full. I won't turn around and balance bill my patient. Same thing on the medical side. You know, if a doctor is in the network, they can't, and if they're billing, you know, $400 for a procedure and Cigna reimburses them, you know, $230 because of their contract agreement, they can't go to you and say, I want the other $170 from what I billed. That's part of their agreement. So a contracted Cigna dentist can't do that balance billing. But if it's a non-contracted dentist, they can do that. Some write it off, some collect it, you know. So that's why you could say, hey, it's covered at 100%, but wait a minute, why am I getting a $30 bill here? It's because they're billing higher than the allowed payment that Cigna offers, and they're not in the Cigna Dental Network. Yeah.
Can we call that 1-800 number and see what doctors are, you know, are listed around the area in the Cigna network?
Yeah, you can go to Cigna.com and look on their dental network.
All the doctors around here?
Yep, the dentist, right. And you know, dentists are a real personal issue. I know people that wouldn't change my mother-in-law has been with a dentist, either a dentist or her dentist's son for over 50 years. And she lives in Richmond Beach and drives down to Beacon Hill for dental work. And she has dental work. I mean, we're talking a lot of it now. But it doesn't matter. That's her dentist and she's not wavering off of it. Other people haven't found the right dentist, and they're willing to bounce around and look. So dentists are kind of people don't kind of choose them based off network as much as they might a medical provider because the amount of money involved necessarily. Okay. What else? What's working for you in the plan? Anything that you had from a previous employer that's not part of this program that you think would be helpful, or any challenges you had with the plan?
I spoke to you last year about poor coverage that we have. This guy lives in Southeast Alaska, as in pretty much no coverage. And I want to know what's been done about it, because right now I'm paying out crap load of money.
I need to talk to you because I asked about that at our pre-renewal.
I got it all wrote down here. And
Okay, I'd like to talk with you if we
run
could.
all my statements. Like my son went in and had 3 stitches, and it cost me over $300 a stitch out of my pocket.
Right. My understanding is that there had been some with Becky that. Go ahead.
Cigna dictates what they'll put towards the deductible. So, like he had stitches and they said only $125 went to deductible. Everything else I was responsible for.
Okay, so I'd like to talk with you afterward. I'd like to get that information if I could, get it to our Benefit Resource Center and have them look at that, because in working with Dana over there, our account manager, I hadn't heard of any issues coming out of Southeast. And so
We've pretty much given up.
let's not give up, okay? Let's not give up. So anyone that's living in Alaska, you know, let's get that information so that we can work on that. I think that they were trying to change that contract last year, and
Nothing changed.
nothing did.
Becky's got a stack for you.
Okay. She needs to move the stack from her to me. So, yes, okay. Someone back here raising their hand?
At my previous employer, I got my girlfriend on my insurance because she was living with me for a bunch of years under a domestic partnership. Like she had to qualify, and I filled out a form. Is it offered here?
I'd have to check on that. I'm not sure. Again, domestic partnership was to 2 things. Number 1, domestic partners it was a state thing, it wasn't federal, and this is a federal regulated contract because we're self-insured. So the state mandate of covering domestic partners didn't apply to Western Towboat. Secondarily now, most companies that had domestic partners are now backing off of that because now you can get married. Because the reason domestic partner was brought up was for same-sex couples. It was unequal, right? Same-sex partners couldn't get married and they couldn't be on plans, so they entered domestic partnerships. And companies changed that. So now we have same-sex marriage, they're saying, hey, wait a minute, there's no difference. If you want to put a spouse on the plan, you do what other people have done, which is to get married. So I'll look into that and get back to you. I'm not sure if we cover domestic partners or not on this plan. Yeah.
Also touching with that, children, like if you're not a true guardian but do have some guardianship over a child who lives in your home, it's kind of a domestic thing. How about that as well?
Well, they've got to be eligible. So we've got to look into what, if it's, if you've got some sort of court order, or you've got some sort of guardianship papers that say I'm responsible for this child, then we need to look in, that needs to be submitted as to why this child would be eligible onto the plan. Okay, so it's not, so there needs to be some connection as to why that child would be under your stewardship, to show that if it's not my natural child, then it's a foster child, or there's some other a stepchild or something like that that would tell us why they would be eligible to be on this plan. Okay, so again, Becky can look at those details of the eligibility. Now, if that child was if that situation hasn't changed since last November, let's say, right? Because there was an opportunity to enroll in November, and if nothing has changed since November, your next opportunity to enroll would be next November, because it hasn't been a life event, unless there's something that comes through and say, we now have full guardianship over this child, and that's different than what we had before. Okay? Yeah?
Yeah, just about all this work in Alaska or go to Alaska, God forbid we get really hurt. Like, what's the deal with the medevac transfer? Like, can you guys pay for that?
Well, if it's work related, it's gonna fall under a different zone, right? It's not really gonna fall under this medical plan, right? So that would be my question. If you're up there working, that's a different situation. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what's the percentage that you cover on physical therapy?
On what?
Physical therapy.
Physical therapy is covered at 80% in network. Out of network, it would be 50%. So if you choose a physical therapist that's in network, it would be covered at that. And I'll have to check to see if it's subject to the deductible or not. I want to take a look at that real quick on my phone, if you don't mind. And then the other thing with physical therapy is that, and I just had a discussion with someone yesterday on this. Physical therapy is it's not unlimited necessarily, right? We may run into the number of visits that are limited. They may say, hey, we're going to authorize 12 treatments for this therapy. And then at that point, we got to assess to see if we are going to authorize any more. So even though there's a percentage that's done, it doesn't necessarily, my summary doesn't go that deep into physical therapy, but number one is that it would typically be covered at a percentage, and there may be some limits on the number of visits. Because we have something happen to us, does that mean we automatically use 25 visits of therapy, right? Or is it 6 or 8? So there's some what we call prior authorization language around that. You might feel some restriction, or the provider will have to do a treatment plan in order to get services authorized. Okay, and again, I'm talking about physical therapy related to health-related issues, right? Yeah.
How about something sort of alternative like acupuncture or chiropractic?
What?
Yeah, chiropractic is covered.
Massage therapy is not, and neither is acupuncture.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a good thing to have
Yeah.
for us. And then also couples therapy. Being we're in an industry that has a higher propensity to divorce, we're away a lot. It's not covered. You cannot go in with your spouse. You can only go in individually. It seems kind of ridiculous. That's the whole issue.
Something we can look at to see if it makes sense. Acupuncture is a state mandate; it's not a federal mandate. You know, so let me grab a napkin.
There's a notepad over here.
Oh, I'm used to doing business on napkins, though, the old way.
Ryan, I can get the acupuncture.
No problem with that, though. Yeah, massage therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic.
Well, massage therapy is covered, but at certain limits, right? Massage therapy, I think that it has to be medically necessary, and they've got to go through that hoop. That's the biggest thing.
There needs to be a prescription for it.
Yes, exactly.
I've only found, under what I've seen, is that's covered for pregnancy. So pre-pregnancy and post-pregnancy. None of us are getting pregnant.
Oh, it wasn't for you.
No.
Oh.
The males don't apply.
Oh, I thought it was
I wish
massage
that-
therapy
I
for
wish
you
it
because
was, yeah, for
you
the-
delivered a baby. Yeah.
When Janet had her neurological problem, she did have some of the massage therapy was covered, but there needed to be a deal. But we never had anything for acupuncture.
Right. So massage therapy, there needs to be a prescription for it to be covered, and they've got to show that the reason for that particular service to be funded by the plan.
Couldn't some of that be considered preventative? From further injury?
I'm not a medical person. I don't know if it could be preventive or not. I mean, that's a fine line and a very gray area, in my opinion, to know what's preventive and what's convenience, and what's a provider. You know, and again, I get a little cynical on providers a little bit because we got to realize that we're top line sales to our providers, right? We've chiropractors over historically have, once they find out how many visits you have covered, they'll bring you right to that visit limit because you're revenue to them. I'm a little cynical about that personally. And I think chiropractor does a great deal of good for a lot of people, but I think there's some bad apples that have kind of caused a lot of this review and structure to be placed around those benefits to make sure they're not being taken advantage of. Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
What did you say about the chiropractic thing? They're covered?
Yeah, again, a chiropractic coverage is covered. It's got to be medically necessary, right? There's got to be, we're going to look for a reason for that to be done, right? And it's got to be, and we're looking for improvement. That's what I just see that from in looking at these claims and people saying, hey, I want to continue going. I can't get any more visits approved. What's the reason? And what I typically see is, are we improving that patient, right? That's what, there's some sort of criteria they're looking for on that.
I started seeing one about like 3 months ago. I used to walk around with back pain all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now since I've been seeing them, I don't have that back pain constantly.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I don't go in, like they looked it up like you were saying, your cynical thing or whatever. But they said there was like 24 visits or something, or 25 a year.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm going there and I'm getting I'm having to pay for the visits. So I'm wondering if the insurance is not paying for it now, if it's a bill and I'm still getting billed.
Well, let's find out. And that's where I would encourage you to contact our Benefit Resource Center. Call them and say, why is this not covered?
Yeah.
And they'll go to Cigna and they'll say, Cigna, what's going on? And then we'll get the explanation from Cigna. Hey, it should be covered, or it's not covered because we're over our 24 visits or whatever the limit is. We're on visit number 28, so the last 3 haven't been covered because we hit our maximum. They'll explain to us exactly why it's not being covered at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, I never went to one before because I didn't think I was about to go, but when I see the benefits of it, it's pretty good.
Good.
Pain management.
Pain management?
Something we get a lot from captains.
Oh, that's great. Medical, yeah, are you talking about prescriptive therapy? Are you prescriptions, are covered. They've got to be prescribed by a physician, you know. I'm sure in your industry there's certain ones they want you to take while you're around these vessels, and there's ones that they don't want you to take when you're around these vessels. So, I mean, that's kind of a technical area, but certainly when we look at the prescriptions that are used, there's plenty of pain meds that are being consumed by the members of Western Towboat here. So, yeah, I mean, if your doctor says you need them and they're allowed by the government, then then there should be pain meds. Now, again, are we really pain meds are a touchy subject, one of the most addictive things out there. So there's a lot of regulations around them right now to protect people from.
Blood tests? Is there a limit on blood tests?
Well, if I don't think there's a limit on it. You know, if someone's, my wife takes warfarin, she's got clotting issues, and so every 6 weeks she's got a blood test, right? And I pay for those. I've got a $3,000 deductible for my family, and once, you know, and so I pay for those tests. They cost about $25 every 6 weeks. You know, so they would be covered under the office visit, but you know, but there's no real limit on them. Okay. All right. Well, again, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I really apologize. I appreciate all the questions. I've written a few things down that I want to get back to you on regarding acupuncture, the 24-month dental limitations, couples therapy, massage therapy, things like that. And I'll get back and be able to go through that and get a response to you. And I appreciate your time. I know you guys are busy, and these things it's a long couple days. And I asked to be here, and then I forgot to come. But
I got a quick question for you. You're a rep for Western Towboat for our insurance, basically, right?
yeah, Western Towboat hires me to help them design their plan.
So if you need, say you need knee surgery that's $60,000 in the U.S., what about going to another country when it's $7,000? Will Western Towboat contribute to that?
We don't have medical tourism built into this policy at this point. That's exactly what you're talking about, is going to a specialty outside of the company. They set you up for 3 weeks, you do it, and you come back, and we don't have that set up in our policy yet. We've kind of talked about it a little bit, but we have not gone there.
A lot of companies are doing that because they save so much money
right.
sending their employee to another country.
Yes, it did until last year. And India does a lot of hips. And last year, India had a big problem with some hips that weren't done so well. And so it kind of slowed down a little bit because maybe it wasn't as great as we thought it was. But I know people that have gone to Belgium and have double hip resurfacing, one procedure, and they're back, and it was half the price of Swedish.
I know people that have gone to the U.S. for hip replacement.
Right.
And it's screwed up.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Doesn't matter where you go.
Exactly. But at this point, we don't have a foreign medical tourism feature in this policy. But that's a great question.
I'll go to Europe.
Europe? Belize or someplace like that? Exactly. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And again, my apologies for being late.
Okay, guys, so we have